it's important, from June 10th to June 16th is the only application window. And to be more specific, 5 p.m. June 16th. To be more specific, if you do not hit submit at 5 p.m. June 16th, the application is not going to count. So we're telling you this now on June 2nd, so that not only you prepare, so that when the application is open, you're able to apply immediately. Another thing that we just want to bring to you that to your attention is that, as I said, you need to provide documentation. And again, we will describe this documentation, but also the time frame specific to the loss in revenues is the month of March. That's what we're considering.
April.
Why I keep going to April, the month of April. Yeah, I know, right? That's right. So there was another program where it was the month of March. So this is the month of April. So all revenue losses for the business in the month of April is what we've considered here. The total amount is 1 million. And we know, this, everything we do right now is not going to be enough. We know that. And so that's why we want to be as fair as possible in not only the application process. Well, let's go back to the preparation process to make sure all businesses are aware about the program. And we're doing our best. We know not all businesses are going to be aware. But we want to make sure that businesses are aware. We want to make sure businesses are prepared. And we want to make sure businesses apply. So when you apply, let me tell you just a little bit about what's going to happen in the back end. No matter if you're number one, right, the first application that was submitted, or let's say number 1,000, the 1,000th application that was submitted. It's not a first come, first serve. So when your application is submitted on the 7th, because this is the 16th, on the 17th is when a random number will be assigned to all of the application, and then about 150 or so will be selected from those random numbers. So between 130 to 150 applications would be, so which means that there's a fair process. And then once those are selected, then we then send out an email to those applicants to provide supporting documents. Right, so we'll go into depth. But for now, let me pause and then turn it over to my colleague who will talk about eligibility. And Judy, go ahead.
Okay, so the first set of eligibility requirements are focused on the business itself. So this is for Montgomery County businesses. Oh, and let me also say, to Daniel's point earlier, we have been running a different program called the Public Health Emergency Grant Program that was also, it was a Montgomery County program. And if you or your business receives a public health emergency grant, you will not be eligible for this one as well. We're trying to make sure that we're helping as many businesses as possible. So anyway, we do want to make sure they're Montgomery County companies. So the first requirement is that either the company is physically located in Montgomery County, or that the owner resides in Montgomery County, and at least 51% of the business revenue is generated in the county. As Daniel said, it's for 5 or fewer employees. This is micro enterprises. You have to be able to demonstrate that you've experienced a loss of revenue. We'll talk about that in a minute, how you demonstrate that. Businesses may not be delinquent in any city, state, or federal taxes. You can't be delinquent in child support payments as the owner. You can't owe other penalties, and you must be in good standing with the state of Maryland. So we will provide you with instructions for how to tell if you're in good standing. That's a requirement that does not apply to sole proprietors, but it does apply to other types of businesses that register with the state of Maryland. Businesses have to have been established by January 1st, 2020. And then they have to provide financial documentation, which we will list. And they must also have a DUNS number. So we provide you with a link there to Dun and Bradstreet, which is where you get a DUNS number. There's no cost to it, and it takes, I think you said, 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty painless process, but that needs to be accomplished in order to apply. And then there are income limits. We'll talk about that in a minute. And you will have to provide documentation to support the household income. Because this is a federal program, the owner and any owners of the business must be either a U.S. citizen or a qualified alien, which is defined by the United States Code. I guess that's what that is, and we provide you with a link there. So you want me to continue, Daniel?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So these are the business documentation documents that we're requiring. We're trying to keep this fairly simple. We need either your tax returns from 2018 or 2019, whichever you have. That's for the business. What we're looking for is to establish the historic average monthly revenue for the business. In addition to the historical tax returns, you will then provide either a profit and loss statement or a bank statement for 2020. Again, what we're trying to show, April 2020. What we're trying to show is the revenue in April of 2020 compared to those historical monthly average revenues. That's what will be used to establish the loss of revenue as a result of the COVID-19 health emergency. If the business is less than 2 years old, we're providing some options. Any tax returns that have been filed, any interim profit and loss statements. If you have January, February, March profit and loss statements. So basically we're trying again just to establish the historical monthly average revenue, and then we'll compare it to the April 2020 profit and loss or the April 2020 bank statements. Again, here's a link to the DUNS number, and also here are the instructions for how to determine if you're in good standing with the state of Maryland. So the business financials are not burdensome. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible, but we do need to establish some idea of what the historical revenue has been and what 2020 is. Okay.
And just quickly on the good standing with the state of Maryland, Judy, I think sole proprietors most likely, they're not registered with the states, they're not required to be in good standing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the income eligibility guidelines. Again, this is a federal guideline and it has to be met in order for any applicant to receive funding through the CDBG program. HUD is who established these guidelines for the region and for each state. And so, which means that the business owner, right, the household income for the business owner, right, this is not the business now, this is the household income. These are the guidelines. So for someone who is just by themselves, they have to, at a minimum, make this amount and then bill or lower. This is the maximum amount actually, and then lower than that. And you'll be surprised, as I say, we went back and forth, but these are the federal guidelines that have to be met. So it gives you for one person, a family of 1 to a family of 8. These are the amounts for the household income. Not only the business owner, but the business owner has a significant other. They have a wife, a husband. They have children that are 18 years and older. All those income have to equal to this amount in order for them to be eligible for the grant program. And these are the documentation that will prove the income eligibility. So again, a copy of a recent pay stub. For example, if the business owner, does the business part-time and work part-time, then we're gonna need the part-time jobs pay stub. If the spouse, the husband and wife or partner, works full-time and therefore covering most of the cost, we're gonna need, again, those, pay stubs as well from the, if they have any member of the household who is 18 years or older, again, a copy, if they work, a copy of those pay stubs. If pay stubs are not available, especially for folks who may be 18 or 19 years old, a letter from whoever they work for will suffice. But also, is asking for in terms of any other income stream within the household. So these are examples. So there's a Social Security, SSI benefits. Those also you need to provide a documentation for it. And then from there, assets within the household, checking, savings, and other forms of assets and we have a list of them there. Again, these are federal guidelines, so they need to get all of that. And then a copy of the most recent tax return. If they haven't filed 2019, then we need 2018. But then for everyone who is in the household, all right. So again, we know this is a lot, but it's what the federal government is asking. So let me pause to say that's the reason why we're not asking for this information up front. So when you're applying, we don't want you to submit all this information, but we want you to prepare. So gather those information now, because if your application is randomly selected and we send you an email on June 17th, we will send you an email with a link, a secure link, which you will click on and it will take you to a drive. And that's where you will securely transfer all the documentation that we're asking for to provide to the federal government. So again, just want to make sure you are aware of that we're not asking you. So in case somebody calls you and say, oh, I'm from Montgomery County, I need all this information. No, that's not us. You will get an email from us, an email with a secure link, and that secure link will allow you to upload all of the secure documents. Yes, go ahead, Judy.
And you'll have 3 days to do that, basically 72 hours.
That is correct. And that is very important, because what happens is that once we randomly select the applications, and we're trying to basically get, all the review done so that, you can get these funds into your account as fast as possible. So that's why also we're doing these webinars now, so that you can start preparing to put these documents together, so that as soon as you, again, get that email from us to upload your files, immediately you can do that, and that will make sure that your application, again, has, little delay. I don't want to say no delay, because nowadays you never know. All right, Judy, you want to, you can talk about the supplementary questions.
So, and I just want to make it clear, if the documents that are required are not provided within that 3-day, 72-hour period, that application will not be considered. We'll move on to the next one. So we just, in order to process these things in a timely way, everybody has to be prepared to do their part of the process. So if we don't receive the documentation, we will send reminders, but if we don't receive it, we're going to move on to the next application. So anyway, these are supplemental questions. We're trying to understand, what has been the impact on businesses of this pandemic. We want to know how the funding we provide will help you, your business remain viable. Will it help you prevent layoffs? Have you identified new lines of business, different kinds of things that you could do if you are able to continue and stay viable? So these are just some things that we're trying to understand what the economic environment is for the business community. And then the next thing we'll ask is whether you've received funds from some other source. Now, as a reminder, if you've received it from the Public Health Emergency Grant Program, you would not be eligible for this, but you could be receiving funding from or assistance from other state or federal programs. That does not disqualify you from receiving funds in this program. However, you shouldn't be using the funding for the same purposes. So, for instance, if you do receive unemployment insurance, you shouldn't use this fund to pay your salary as well, okay? Use this funding to pay for some other business expense. So basically, we're asking that you not do double dipping. So you don't use the same, you don't pay the same expenses with funding from different places. And we will be asking for a report at some point in time. We'll be asking you to report back to us how you used the funds. So please keep careful track of what you're using the funding for, this funding as opposed to any other assistance that you're receiving. And then we'll want to know, are there still gaps? I mean, what else do you need to prevent layoffs or create new jobs? And how you plan to fill the gap in funding. So if there's still a gap between your expenses and any funding you've received from these various sources, what is your plan for meeting that need?
Okay, so before we go into Q&A, if you have questions already, just go into the chat box and then type those questions there. When we finish reading the questions on the chat box, we will then, if we have time, tell people to basically unmute their mics and then ask their questions. But before we go to that, I just want to make sure I highlight that this is a public site. So I just highlighted the link, the website itself. We want you to go to this site when we're done, as you're putting together those documents, because this site is public, you have access to it. But more importantly, this is where the application actually will be when it goes live on June 10th. So June 10th, this is the link that you're also going to come to apply. And we've started putting together some resources for you on this side of the page. So the first one I want to highlight is the sample application. In other words, we are providing all the questions on the application right there. If you download that, you can see all the questions that are there. Just as a heads up, we're not accepting any PDF format of the application. The application is going to be a live application where the link will be here. When you come, you click, and you go from one page to another until you submit your application. The sample application just gives you a foreknowledge of those questions, so you don't have to wait till you go to the next page and then start to put things together. The sample application tells you what page 1 will be, page 2, page 3, and all the pages that you will see when you're applying, so that you're prepared. You can even write in that sample application to make it easy for you, so that when you're filling out the electronic application, you can just copy from the sample application. Another thing we want to highlight is the FAQs. So there are frequently asked questions that we've come up with based on our experience with people asking about the program or other programs, and we've put the FAQs right here. So if you have a question right away, you may probably want to check that before you send us an email. And I'm not sure if the email is there yet, but we'll go through it.
It's there.
Is there? Perfect.
It's right below where you are.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so the FAQs are right here. The Spanish version of the FAQ, it's on its way. So we're hoping that will go live very soon, maybe today or tomorrow at the latest. So that will come out very soon. There you go. So email for questions. So if you've gone through all the FAQs and your questions are not answered, just send us an email. If you click on this, it will take you to BizInfo COVID-19 at montgomerycountymd.gov. But just click on it; it'll open up in your email client, and then you'll be able to send us an email. As you know, there are additional webinars that are coming up. I just want to make sure I highlight that. These webinars are in majority are in English, but we have Spanish only webinar that's going to take place tomorrow, right here at 11 a.m. That, by the way, let me just give you FYI, that time might change because based on the Hispanic chamber, they say that I think the evening may be good. So if any changes will take place here, so once I confirm from the Hispanic chamber, they're the ones that are leading the webinar. There's a Mandarin only webinar that will take place on the 4th, and then there will be an Amharic only webinar, which is being hosted by the Ethiopian American Chamber of Commerce. So once that information is provided to me, I'll make sure that everything is here. All right, that being said, Judy, you want to say anything before we go to questions?
The only other thing that I would say is that ACH form, that people might be wondering why that's there. If you scroll down a little on the resources, it's just because when we do approve grants, this is one of the pieces of information that will need to be supplied in order for people to get paid. So it's just there for convenience, that's all.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so the first question is, I was awarded a contract in January, but the contract was canceled because of the lockdown. My question is, how would I prove it since my documentation would not reflect a loss per se? would you upload the presentation link on the chat box? All right, so let's talk about the loss in revenues. And this is from Felicity. Felicity, can you just unmute yourself? Let's get a full understanding of what's happening. So you're talking about there's a loss in revenue based on a contract, right? So that would reflect definitely.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Yes,
Yeah,
what I'm saying is I was awarded a contract in January. So because of the lockdown, I lost the contract.
Mhm.
And the thing is, you are saying that we have to prove a loss in revenue. We have to show it for the month of April.
Mhm.
But with this situation, I cannot show any loss of revenue. But all I have is the contract that was canceled. So how will I show the loss in revenue? I mean,
Okay.
I don't know,
So
because it will not reflect on the on my documentation that I will be providing.
all right. So we're going to talk about in terms of how we're calculating the loss in revenues, because that will give you an idea. As Judy stated earlier, we're asking for you've been in business for over a year, right?
6 years.
6 years. So which means you have taxes. So
Yes.
we're looking for 2018, 2019 taxes.
Mm.
And we'll take an average of the top line number, right, of your taxes. That will give us your monthly average, right? Monthly average. So we take the whole year tax divided by 12, it gives us monthly averages. And then you provide us with your April P&L statement or your April bank statement if if you don't have a P&L statement. And that will then, when we subtract the revenues for April from the monthly averages, that basically is how we determine the loss in revenues. So which means, for example, if your historic monthly average is X, and then your April 2020 revenues is Y, then we're doing, again, Y minus X, that will give us the amount in terms of the loss in revenue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But what I'm saying, I mean, if you even do that, you will see, from 2018 to 2019, you will see an increase on my revenues. But
Sure.
the thing is, by April, you still see that steady revenue. But what I call lost is the contract that I lost, because that could have been a revenue, plus for me. But since I lost it, but I cannot, you cannot see that on the statement because I didn't even start.
So those are future losses you're talking about. Well, go ahead, Judy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, just if I can maybe try to help with this. So I guess here's the thing. If you still have revenue that is equal to or greater than your historical monthly average revenue from the past, then you would not be eligible for a grant because you haven't had a loss. But if because you lost that contract, your revenue is down, then you would be eligible for a grant because your revenue now is lower than what your monthly average was historically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because on the contrary, I had to do some investment in order to sustain this new contract. So actually, I have a loss. I can show a loss because.
Remember, it's a loss in revenue.
Loss in revenue. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. And as I say, we're having these webinars every day. So if you come back tomorrow and let's say you want to give us anything more specific, we can look at that as well. And right now we're not having a lot of people on the webinars, so which means we can take time, to talk about, individual stuff. All right. Well, thank you for that. So there are no other questions on the chat box. If you haven't asked a question, please unmute yourself, state your name and the name of your company, and ask your question. Anyone else with a question?
Well, remember, you can email questions too if you need to.
That's right. So and we know this is, again, we've discussed a lot. Oh, okay, I see the boxes blinking. All right. So these are some questions that came in from our last, our previous webinar. If a business was declined for FEG, can they still apply for this program? Do you want to take that?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, it's only if you have received a grant from the FEG program that you wouldn't be eligible for this.
There you go. So if you've applied, you haven't received any funding, yes, please go ahead and apply if you meet all the eligibility criteria. If you receive funding, then you wouldn't be eligible for this one. That's good.
Correct.
All right. Any other question? Just please unmute yourself.
Will you, is it possible to have this presentation? I mean, will you upload it on the chat box?
This website?
I mean, oh, that's the website. Okay.
Yes. So that's the reason why we're using the website, because we want people to get familiar with the website. That we want people to have the link so they could come there and they'll basically go through all what we just went through. They could imagine me and Judy making this presentation while they're going through the entire page, where Judy is saying, you must have this, you must have that. Daniel is saying, the goal is that we really want people to get familiar, because when you are familiar with the page, then you're able to actually not only understand the program better, but also you're able to provide the documentation when we ask for it. And that makes your, in terms of preparation, better. It also makes our review better as well, to get this money as fast as possible to the applicants who are eligible. Thank you for that question. All right, are there any other questions? Please unmute yourself and ask.
Are we using the same link every day?
Yes, this is
okay.
This is the same link we're using every day. This is the same link. So remember, the webinars are going to go from, we're going till Saturday, and then we're not having any seminars on any webinars on Sunday, but we'll pick up back on Monday and all the way to Saturday. But excuse me, on Wednesday, the 10th, we will switch over to Q&A session, because at that time people would start applying and they may have some questions about the application or the application process itself. And so we'll switch over to Q&A.
And if I might add, the link to the website is the same, but the link to the webinars will change. So you'll want to go to that list of webinars,
yes,
and click on the one for the day.
That's correct. Yep. So right here, if you click here, it brings up all the webinars, and that will change for each day. And you need to register for each day in order for you to have access.
Okay.
All right. Any other question?
Okay. When are you going to open the application? Do you know at this point?
Yes, right here, June 10th.
June 10th.
And it closes June 16th.
Okay, good. June 10th. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? From anybody else? Any other question? Okay. Okay. So the I was just informed that, okay, this has been live streamed, so which means people can also have access to it as well. If you go to the Buzz 365 Media page, I think their YouTube channel as well, it will be there. So you can also review the this video that we're going through right now. So again, not only you can have access to of course you have access to the page for you to come in and see everything again, but you can go to YouTube and then just type in, I think, Buzz 365 Media. You must have received an email from them, because if you register for this webinar, they send you a confirmation email. So just go to their YouTube channel and you'll be able to review this presentation again. Any other question? Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we are planning to have, again, another webinar tomorrow, and we ask that if you know other businesses that needs to know about this information, please share the link with them for them to register. The goal is, as Judy said earlier, we want to help as many businesses as possible, and we want to make sure that the word is out. So please, let me see. All right, as something just came up to the chat box. Okay, good morning. I have a question on state grants. We'll have time to talk as soon as you finish this one. All right, Lainey. Again, we don't have much information about the state grant because, as you know, the state and federal grants are, there's not much information that we have on that, and not because we don't want to. Is that it's just not available to not only the public but even to us. But I would give you a call for us to talk about your question, and then I'll try to see if I can find an answer to your question. All right. That being said, Judy, you want to say anything else before we wrap up?
Nope. Just like I said, you can send an email if you have questions after this, after reviewing the webpage. Please feel free to be in touch.
And lastly, before we go, I just also want you to know that we're providing, we just finished up a flyer, which is in the top 6 languages that are spoken here in Montgomery County. So we'll provide that on this website so that you can share that as well. So we'll have flyers in Spanish, in Mandarin, in Amharic, in Korean, in Vietnamese, and French. But also, I'm putting together a list of business resource partners who are willing to help businesses to apply for the program, and those business resource partners will be also on the resource side right here. This is the resource side of the page, and you can call them if you need help in not only in English but other languages as well. And some of them will be, they provide, phone numbers for you to call, and some will provide email. And then if you send them an email with your phone number, then they will call you. We're doing this because we want to make sure that people understand, businesses understand exactly what the program is about, but also for them to apply. However, again, we know that, there's so much happening right now. Some people may need to look at this video again, or you may need somebody else, because if you try to reach one of us, you may not be able to get a hold of us. We're giving you multiple streams, in terms of, ways that you can be supported in this application process. All right, thank you everyone for joining us. And if you're more than welcome to join us again tomorrow. Invite someone who you feel, will benefit from this presentation, and get them prepared to apply for the program. With that being said, we will go ahead and end the webinar right now.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daniel with Buzz 365 Media. We do in-person and remote live stream video productions. If you are having technical difficulties setting up a virtual meeting, conference, or workshop, give me a call. Buzz 365 Media is here to help you.